Welcome to another episode of the Tear Your Fucking Face Off podcast. Today I'm speaking with one of the label artists, Ashabah, and its leader, Pariah. Pariah, how are you? Who are you? Where do you come from? What's it all about?
How's it going, Ben? Yeah, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me. So who am I? Well, um, recently I released a black metal album, so you can call me a black metal artist now, I guess. Yeah,
Congrats.
like you mentioned, the band name is Ashabah. This is my first ever band. This is my first ever piece of music release, so completely brand new to the music scene. Black metal was something that I wanted to write for quite a while. It's a music interest of mine. I like a lot of different metal genres. Melodic death metal is one of my favorites. Anything really with a good mix of melody and like harshness, is a really my favorite type of thing. So black metal was kind of like an interesting area where I felt like it was kind of unexplored in terms of mixing melody and harshness. Usually black metal is very dark and aggressive and, in your face, but I kind of wanted to do that, but with a little bit more, melody and like catchiness to it. I know black metal is kind of this like anti-mainstream type of thing, and I liked that, but I also wanted to kind of try to make it catchy so that anyone could listen to it and really just like enjoy the experience. Not everybody who listens to black metal is gonna be like, oh, this is great. Most people are like, oh, this is like all noise. I can't understand anything. Like,
Mhm.
why do you listen to this? So yeah, that was kind of my goal, and that was basically what Ashaba is all about. Is kind of making this unique take on black metal. And I've got a bunch of different inspirations and all this different stuff. But yeah, hopefully that should cover who I am in a
Yeah.
maybe not too long
Oh,
soliloquy there.
no, that's fine. Some interesting things you picked up on there, just to kind of let anyone who's watching kind of aware. 13th of October saw the seven-track album EP, well, it's extended EP album project completion in the self-titled Ashabah release coming out, and it focuses a lot around ritual kind of behaviors, dances, incantations, and and this kind of makes me like think, because you highlighted black metal often perceived as noise by some, and you wanted to take some of the more the melodious kind of like a take on things, and this has made, when I listened to it, it made me want to get up and move, which apart from sort of rocking, headbanging in my chair, which I've
Yeah,
a million YouTube videos of me doing that, for anyone to watch. But it's slightly different in that they felt like ritual soundtracks. They felt like incantations, and that is sort of testament to, that's the idea you've had, to put the project together in that way, and it's been executed perfectly, because that's exactly what I felt, what I heard, and
thank you.
and what I did. I almost want to set up a campfire, find something to sacrifice on it, and,
That
and
was the idea.
dance the night away.
I can tell you where that inspiration came from because I'm sure it's a little, I guess, unique in a way. Actually, that idea came from the like actual song that inspired me to write black metal, which, believe it or not, yes, it was one song, that actually I heard it immediately. It was like, I've never heard anything like this. I love the sound of this. I want to hear more of it. And I was like, where can I take this? And that's what kind of started my music writing journey. So the song in question is by a Finnish band called Nonum, and they're very, very true black metal. Like this is like, nothing really non-true about them. They're extremely dark and like, as true to, black metal as you can be. And they've released this one song called, I think it's called When I Died Inside or something. And this song is just so unique in black metal. There's very few black metal bands that really try not just to go for that atmosphere, but for that like, catchiness, the melodies, the actual musical component that makes you want to like get up and dance and like, headbang and stuff. they're like, yeah, a lot of people do the headbanging and stuff to just regular aggression, regular like blast beats and everything, but this was different. And when I heard this, I was like, yeah, I got to make something like this. And where I got the idea for like the whole rituals and everything and this cool like kind of like a cult type of vibe was I saw someone commented on the video on YouTube and said, this is almost like a ritualistic dance. And when I read that, I was like, yeah, it sounds like this kind of like satanic ritualistic dance. And I'd never heard anything like it. And I was like, I want to make a whole album of this. Shoot, like this is just ripe for the for the artistic exploration because I'd never heard another person write music like this. And it's so unique because even Nonum's like later albums didn't even approach this level of melody and catchiness that I had never heard. So that's kind of where that whole ritualistic occult vibe came from. I'm not personally like true black metal like some of those people are. Like I don't put on corpse paint. I don't do any type of live performance. It's purely for the artistic expression, and writing under that pen name is just kind of like a very kind of cool way of kind of delving into the genre a bit. It's very popular in black metal to have pseudonyms, and yeah, I ended up solidifying Pariah, and a few of my other band members kind of chose what they wanted to choose, and yeah, that's kind of how we all got to be.
So, where did the name Ashabah come from? Because it sounds like not only is there a story to the themology, but and the music, and it's really cool that this one song, which I will look up, that one song
Yeah.
kind of led into this whole kind of segue and brought a project to fruition. But
Oh
where did
yeah.
the origin of the name come from?
So Ashaba actually comes from a video game. It's like the Elder Scrolls series of video games. You've probably heard of them, maybe.
I've
I
heard.
don't know if you play video games, but yeah, there's Skyrim and all of the the ones that people know. So the name Ashaba is this like tribe of outcasts in the world who are like sworn to like hunt down undead, and they're kind of like pariahs in the universe. Like no one wants to like in their culture, like no one wants to kill the undead. No one wants to like actually have to go and like kill the zombies because it's against their culture. So they chose this one tribe to like be the ones that were gonna like slay the undead and like go and do all the nasty stuff that's not permitted by the culture. So yeah, they're known as like the pariah tribe or whatever, and that's kind of where the name came from, and also where the band name came from. And I thought it was really cool, like their whole vibe of kind of like being this secretive kind of group of, basically like not really like necromancers, but basically dealing with all these rituals and everything. So yeah, that's kind of where it came from. It's nothing too deep, just something I thought was really interesting.
No, it is interesting. Even if you may think you've sort of plucked this from an arena that might be typical, because yeah, you have such a sort of a peculiar one-off vibe. And there's a sense of history as well with this band in the way you kind of pick your artwork.
Hmm.
Tell me a little bit more about that because I know it's sourced from various interesting places, shall we say?
Yeah, so the actual, of course, the name came from a video game, but then the actual like imagery and stuff actually came from like this manual on witchcraft from the like 1600s. I think it was called like the Malleus like Maleficarum or something. And yeah, it was just like this really old manuscript on how to like deal with witches, and like it's kind of like this almost like ironic vibe of like, witchcraft is this like evil thing, and like you have to kind of like purge it and like all this stuff, and they didn't really understand anything back then. So of course anything that was considered witchcraft was just immediately like you're going on a stake or whatever, you're going to die, whatever. They didn't understand it, and so I liked this idea of kind of like being that group of witches almost, and like kind of borrowing some of that imagery and kind of taking it and kind of reversing it, like, oh yeah, we're the the group that is being persecuted, we're like the evil people, so to speak. And even though we come off as like just another band, like we're just this melodic kind of black metal band, but it's kind of like this, I guess, layer of irony. Like I wanted to kind of borrow from this witchcraft thing because there's just a lot of different ways you can take it, and it fits into the ritual type of theme. So yeah, it's kind of why I decided to borrow it. I liked the minimalistic aspect too of the artwork. It's very black and white, which obviously is well suited to black metal.
Yes.
And yeah, it was cool. It was unique. I'd never seen any other bands kind of use that kind of imagery, really.
It's actually quite an interesting kind of style of look because, as you say, you've got the components there, and visually that are kind of could be you quite stereotypically used in black metal. And when you go to black and white, well, there's usually more black than there is of the white, but
Yeah,
you've gone the other way, which I think that's a little bit of a standout because it actually makes it.
totally.
I mean, how many black metal covers are just completely black and there's a moon and there's a few trees
Yeah,
and
and that was
all this
really
kind
the
of stuff.
idea.
Yeah. It seems you're an individual that is quite capable and well versed in pulling out components, and obviously you've dreamt up this project from the basis of one song that you've heard, and then you've added this layer to it, that layer to it.
Hmm.
So it's almost like a design and a marketing type of kind of expertise or background. I mean, have you kind of worked on any other sort of projects before, sort of musically or non-musically?
Well,
You've had to do
music.
kind of stuff?
Yes, I have actually worked on another project, but in all honesty, it was quite terrible. Back in college, I had like kind of experimented with making black metal a little bit, and I think the main thing holding me back was I really suck at playing instruments, and I'll get more into that later. But yeah, I can't really play guitar. I'm not good at it. I miss a ton of notes. I can't really play fast, which is exactly how black metal is. I want to play fast. I want to, follow the tempo, but yeah, even the music I write is also very hard to play. It's just tons of really fast melodies and all this stuff. So I was writing that back when I thought I could still kind of do the whole guitar thing, and I just didn't have the patience to really grind out learning a whole instrument. I just liked writing the music, and the music that I wrote was kind of limited by what I could play, and it didn't really come out good. It was just kind of like black metal, but missing kind of like a lead guitar, a really good melody. It was mostly just rhythm. I'm not really going to share it because I really do think it was bad, but yeah, I did have a project before, and I didn't even pick up music again until about 6 years, 5 years later, when I really felt like I had enough pieces together in my head of what I wanted this project to look like, that I felt confident just taking a stab at it. And
you,
yeah, so I mean, go ahead.
let's say you then you had to put a band behind it because I'm assuming music
Yeah,
hiatus 6 years, and then you've dreamt all this up, and then you've got to find people to play it. You've got to put a band together.
yeah,
How,
yeah. I can't play any instruments. I have to kind of rely on session musicians and stuff. So yeah, all the members of my band are session musicians. They're all into the music. They're all, kind of basically like a part of the band officially, but at the same time, it's no secret. They're session musicians being a part of it. They're from all over the world. I networked with them, using Fiverr, and yeah, it was actually amazing that I kind of was able to piece this together without having any musical experience at all. It was really just kind of like the passion that pushed me through. I was just grinding for like 6 or 7 months, just writing riffs, and like I didn't even know how to write music. Like I still don't really know how to officially write music. I was just kind of playing around with tab software and just composing everything by ear.
I
So
mean, what is the definition of knowing how to write music? Certainly, with some things you can certainly hear on the radio today, you wonder, really? Okay, but there's no right or wrong place to be in your kind of level of skill.
oh yeah.
You got knowledge. For me, people sort of say I'm a really proficient keyboard player. Yeah, I am in bits and pieces as I'm recording as I go along. Ask me to play all of my music in like a 45-minute slot, and I'm fucked. You know? And but it doesn't stop me from composing, and it certainly shouldn't be anything that you beat your own self
Oh,
head with a big stick.
well, yeah, totally. But at the same time, I can write killer melodies and entirely by ear, which is not something anybody can do. I feel like that's the skill that I really leveraged to make this band possible. I couldn't play guitar. I couldn't read music or write it like, using scales or chords or whatever. I literally just went into tab software, composed it by ear, and yeah, I wrote badass melodies for 7 songs, and I had a ton of fun. And yeah, I'd say that was the main skill that really took the band where it is. Like, just a lot of people really love the music. I've showed it to people who don't even like black metal, and they're like, wow, this is catchy, this is great. And that was exactly what I wanted to achieve. Ultimately, I achieved my goal with this band, even if I couldn't, do, everything that every other musician seems to be able to do perfectly. I can, write these melodies and somehow get it together. And yeah, I wrote a ton of great songs.
You have, and there's one thing I like to touch on there. What you said is you had a lot of great fun with it, and I think that absolutely shines through in the music because it is fun. And
Yeah.
whilst a lot of black metal is enjoyable, and I absolutely love it, there is this added unique fun element to your first release here, which I think sets you apart. And to achieve that as a non-playing musician, that isn't particularly focused on one instrument and has gone about that process. I mean, that's a huge credit. That's a huge credit to, and not only that, but to establish a concept, establish a brand and a theme, and all of the nuances that it's going to take to actually put it together with musicians that you've got involved to do it. I mean, those are all a set of attributes and milestones that could just completely be outside of the scope of capacity for anyone else in a similar position. But you've proved that it can be done.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I would totally love to credit Caffeine for all of my songs. I would say, yeah, you mentioned the fun thing. Well,
I
I'll tell
stop
you.
right here.
Well, I tell you, all of my songs were written on copious amounts of Red Bull. I was like just an unstoppable riff writing machine when I had these ideas. I mean, I would write an entire song. I would spend a whole day writing a song, just drinking Red Bulls. Just the whole song would be done by the end of the day, and then I'd just send it off to my guitarist, get the drum tracks, boom, I had a song. It was a very like intense and kind of crazy process, but it manifested itself in the music. Everything's high energy, everything's like super, danceable, and like yeah, that's kind of where it came from. And I wanted to communicate that from in the music, this energy and like craziness, and it
Ashabah,
was tons of fun.
Ashabah,
Yeah.
sponsored by Red Bull. Yeah?
Shout out to Red Bull for sponsoring me. No, they didn't.
They sponsored you in vitrio. Um,
Yeah.
uh, I mean, I take a similar approach. In many years gone by, it was cocaine. That's
another
something.
another substance that
Yeah,
works for that.
yeah, yeah. And but thankfully, I'm like 1,080 days clear of the stuff now because it ended up causing
Nice.
a lot of problems. Which is kind of what I do now. To try and sort of stop people having the same problems as I did. And a number of diagnoses sort of flourished. And my most recent one is
Mm.
ADHD, which kind of lends itself to caffeine binges,
Oh yeah.
and,
Oh
and
yeah.
and hyperfixation, and the ability to sort of sit there and
Oh yeah.
program away. Yeah, you know the language. I can I can.
Totally, totally. I mean, I myself have it, and that's actually what helped me as well. Is really just getting that hyper fixation. Like nothing could stop me from writing. Like I was literally just hyper fixated to the extreme. And yeah, I mean, I managed to do it 7 times. The album came out to 30 minutes exactly, so it was a full album actually, not an EP. So yeah, I was able to do it, but I don't know if I had any more in me by the end of it. It was a lot of work, a lot of riff writing. I had to really like push some boundaries just to write stuff because it was a lot of trial and error. I was borrowing stuff from my head, I was trying to like write it without knowing how anything was supposed to sound in a tab. So I was just kind of like, how does this note sound? How does that note sound? And just combining them constantly. So yeah, it was a process. It wasn't as easy as like another musician might have it, where they're like, okay, use this chord, that chord, now boom, we got a chord progression, now let's write a melody. Like, no, it wasn't that easy for me. So it was interesting to kind of get all that done, but it definitely left me spent. It was a lot.
You know what? The one thing, excuse me, one thing that I'm thinking of about your writing process is your notating and you're essentially pointing and clicking at notes. Um,
Yeah.
Now, one approach to make that easier the next time round, I've initially thought would be like a small like keyboard, like USB, like musical keyboard. When you're
Yeah.
learning an instrument, also, but nowadays you can just get a pad which is a bunch of squares, like,
Yeah.
and you program each kind of note into that. That might be a way round the musical instrument barrier, because you just basically each box is a certain note in the scale.
True.
You might be able to you might be able to kind of streamline that compositional process, um,
True. True.
and then you're also playing something at the same time that might work. That might work for you. It's just an idea.
It could for sure. And I actually have been trying to learn music a little bit more formally. I've kind of been taking a break from it recently to focus on other things, but I was hoping that with a formal knowledge of music, I could really like take this to the next level, because I've tried, writing after this album, and a lot of it just sounds similar to what I've already written. And I really want to avoid that for a second album. I really want to kind of do something completely different. And I think having a formal understanding of music will give me a better tool set to kind of move outside of what I'm comfortable with, because I mean, I could write those riffs all day, but it's going to sound similar to riffs that I had already written in that first album. I used like every piece of inspiration I had, all the little riffs I'd come up with went into that album. So, yeah, I'm hoping one day I can really like push this beyond, and I've got it set in my sights maybe for the next few months to start writing some more stuff, maybe put out a single sometime, and just give people more stuff. I've got a ton of followers on Instagram now, and I kind of want to give them something. I'm There's a lot of stuff that I still want to do. So yeah, maybe in the next few months we'll have that.
Good, good. Well, I'm glad to hear that it's certainly in your mind to sort of continue and work on something. And we'd love to, experience another round of Ashabah for sure. I
Oh,
think
totally.
when it comes to the music theory side of things, I would say keep it light. Maybe have a look at what things are in relation to each other, and I'm talking about um like the differences between the notes, like tones and semitones, and then sort of the major, the minor, the chords, the diminished chord.
Yeah,
You can get all of this stuff in a healthy chart, but then don't go into it too far deeper than that, because sometimes
oh yeah,
things that are dystonic, as in things that would not that aren't perfectly uniform and perhaps sort of great against each other. Um, these can create sort of atmosphere, and it's in not following the same sort of patterning as everybody else that you can sort of find your structure. And it may just be that
totally.
it may just be the case that you can get away with writing similar riffs, but you just maybe change it to a different like key. So
Yeah,
a guitar, as you will know, is like usually tuned to like E. That's on the first string. If you transpose that up and down, you have a slightly different sound. So you can sort of write the same sort of riffs, but the album doesn't sound the same because each
right.
key. And that stepping stone to that is just knowing what the notes are in relationship into each other. Because
Yeah,
between the notes are going to be the same, whether you're in a minor key, whether you start on A, or whether you start on F, or whether you start on E. So that might just be like just a little step that you could take, and that might well be enough for you to inspire, because your ear is hearing things at different frequencies.
totally. And I have a little fun fact to share. Actually, initially when I was writing this music, I had included a banjo in all of the tracks, and this album was going to be way more unique than I think it ended up being. It already is super unique, but I initially had like a banjo and all the tracks just kind of like lining up with the guitar, and it added this like really unique sound that again I've never heard before. I haven't really heard anybody play that before. Even like bands, black metal bands that have used banjo, like Take is a great example of a band that has used banjo a little bit. None of them have really focused their kind of like songs around a banjo. And I thought that would be a really cool idea for the next album because I ended up actually cutting it because my producer was like, well, the virtual banjo that you're using doesn't sound realistic enough. I really don't think you should go with it. And I didn't want to spend more money hiring, a banjo player because I had already spent a ton of money already at this point producing the album. So banjo didn't make it in, but I think the listeners will really like the way the banjo sounds once I start writing stuff again because I plan on fully kind of going down that road, and it's going to be very unique compared to what I'm doing. It's just, like you said, I've kind of got to play around with the tune and the riffs and everything and just kind of get this unique sound again that I think fits really well with the banjo.
That sounds really interesting. I'm keen. What I really like about our journey is I think sort of we could come out of no you come out of nowhere and it's just instantly fun, instantly kind of unique. You're very humble about where you've sort of come from and how you've arrived at this project. And I think that it really is a project that really shines. And it's
Thanks.
awesome to have it on the label. When I could get the time to do all of the sort of TikTok live stuff and what have you, I need to sort of get back into regular streaming again soon. But you know how life is. But
Yep.
it was always received with as much fun as I received it when I heard it, and not many bands or not many projects can kind of pull that off. So you
Thank you.
do have something quite special here. So I'm
Yeah.
very invested in the development.
I appreciate that. And yeah, I fully agree. I even my own music, I've never heard anything like this. And I've heard plenty of people say the same thing. I don't know where it came from. If I had to kind of guess at, where I got the inspiration from outside of that one Nonum song, I'd always liked melodic heavy metal. So like Iron Maiden and like, Metallica and all those bands have really, really amazing melodic riffs. And I loved it. But I also like the more hardcore riffs of like death metal and black metal. So I was borrowing a lot from riffs that I had kind of heard in the past from like Iron Maiden and Metallica, and then just kind of putting my own spin on it. Nothing sounded exactly the same as what I had heard. It was kind of like a unique mix of styles that I kind of wanted to blend. And I think that's why it's so unique. I feel like when most people come up and write black metal, they're kind of like, okay, I need to write aggressive, heavy music. I'm just gonna, get this drum playing at 200 BPM and just start strumming, and that's kind of like I think the way you should be writing black metal for sure. That's kind of how it is, that raw aggression. But I was like, no, I want to kind of draw from other stuff I've heard and like really kind of make it unique. So yeah, that's kind of why it is that way. And I'm happy that it's so different because that's always kind of how I want it to be. I never wanted to be a copy of another band. Like I knew from the beginning I didn't want to be known them too. I didn't want to be just a copy of them. I wanted to kind of do my own thing, even though that one song from them inspired my entire project. I knew I didn't want to sound like them, and I don't. I mean, they're much more raw and like gritty than my music is. Their tone for their guitar is different. Mine's kind of more of like a heavy metal sort of guitar. It's still raw, but it's not the same. It's not as distorted. So yeah, I wanted this unique sound, and that's something that I'm going to continue for all of my next albums and projects and stuff. Is just giving people something they haven't heard before. Because everybody has who's listened to black metal. There's not a lot of it, right? I mean, there's a lot I'm sure from smaller bands, but just in terms of the major stuff, once you've heard about 20 or so bands, you kind of have an idea of how it sounds. But I kind of want to change that a bit. I kind of want to show this other side of black metal, this like unique kind of catchy side of it. It's even melodic black metal, which is kind of basically like what I was going for essentially, doesn't sound exactly the same because it's still more deeply rooted in black metal. But yeah, no, I want to root my music in heavy metal, melodic heavy metal, and that's how it's going to continue to be. So I hope people, enjoy it. And so far, everybody has. So yeah, I'm looking forward to
I haven't met a person that hasn't enjoyed it. So
it.
it's an
Same here. I just wish it was, I wish we could get it out to a bigger audience. It's hard when you don't have, huge label. I feel like because a lot of bands who get out there just have these massive labels behind them and have already like released a good bit of discography, so they've got that marketing power. But when you're starting like me, who, I've done a lot of independent marketing, I've hired like PR agencies and stuff to kind of put my music out there, and of course I've got in contact with you and everything. I've been able to reach a great audience, and I'm happy with people I've reached, but I want to take it beyond that. And I'm really looking forward to, what we're able to achieve with this label, and really, how we can take the marketing to the next level. Because yeah, tons of people love it, and I want to keep giving people that, that music.
Yeah, indeed. I mean, well, hopefully the podcast coming out will help a little bit. Go on. I do what I can. For every big super band that kind of makes it through the label, there's probably about 200 bands that don't. And on the smaller labels, such success can be mixed. And for those people that are just as talented, or perhaps even like phenomenally, like I forget the word, but savant like style, like
Yeah.
talented, the common denominator between us all is that we can put stuff out and it goes nowhere. And
Yeah.
social media, companies that are controlling how much stuff people sees, and not particularly linking people well together.
Oh yeah.
I think the basis of forming, our online communities and stuff, it's a way to push it. But it's and when we're in a niche of a niche of a niche, which every kind of anything
Right.
anything that isn't mainstream, sort of, I suppose, rock is probably the most
Yeah.
thing. Then you've got mainstream metal. Then as soon as you start going into the subdivisions, the numbers shrink, and becoming.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I was an instrumental kind of metalist, and that's a niche within a niche within a niche. Um,
Yep.
start putting vocals on it, and things have widened out. But we will get there. It's not for the want of trying. And but
Totally.
what's perhaps more important is the feeling you're left with after you've actually started from nothing, and then you've
Oh
completed
yeah.
a project,
Oh yeah.
and you've been on that journey. So kind of in closing to the interview, what would you say to someone of, let's say, limited guitar proficiency, but who is considering sort of taking on a project? Do it, don't do it, what are the pitfalls, what has it done, to you, so psychologically, kind of going through the journey and receiving all the positivity at the end, the platforms you're on?
Well, all right. I'll start with what I would say to someone who doesn't have any experience playing and wants to write something. For one, I'd say definitely find your inspiration and definitely like iron that out. Like, I feel like when you write music, it kind of has to be like a very like personal experience, or very like powerful experience that comes from, your inner passion, and something has to awaken that. You can't just like, I mean, I guess you can just pick up a guitar and start writing, but you don't really get to the level of releasing an entire album and just, putting your heart and soul into something unless you're truly inspired. So first things first, listen to a shit ton of metal, listen to a shit ton of music, and just I mean, I already spend a lot of time listening to music. I'm sure whoever's interested in writing music is the same way, but listen to a lot and think about what else you think could be there. Where is there a gap for this type of music? Maybe you have an idea for, like, I don't know, melodic black metal that uses clean vocals or something. There's very, very little of that, if not nothing. Maybe you like, a different combination of unique traits. I'd say the best thing you could possibly do is, inspiration wise, is just try to come up with a unique idea. And in terms of like approaching actually doing it, I would say that once you're inspired, I feel like the rest almost kind of takes care of itself. Obviously look around, talk to people who have written music before, get advice. I didn't, when I was starting out, I didn't really like, know anything about what I was doing. I just opened up a, I forget what they call it. Just one of those like music composition softwares and just started
Yeah,
playing around, yeah, I was just messing around. I didn't know what the hell I was doing. I would share my music on Reddit. People would comment and be like, "Oh yeah, you should do this, you should do that." And I just kind of like went with it. I networked, I got what I needed to get done. And I would say do the same, talk to people, figure out what the best approach is for you, whether it's like just kind of picking up a guitar and practicing favorite songs or getting a music teacher or whatever. So I'd say, yeah, just start with your inspiration. And I feel like the rest will kind of fall in your lap once you feel motivated. Now the second part of your question, what kind of impact has this had on me? Honestly, huge. Like just seeing the amount of feedback from people all over the world, just on Instagram, just reaching out. Like I had people from like Chile, I had people from like Russia, I had people from like everywhere, just like reaching out and just saying, "Hey, your band's awesome. This is great music." Just seeing that outpouring was just completely insane, especially because even though it was small, just seeing like the how spread out it was, like how this music had spread was just wild to me. Like just knowing that something that I had written has kind of reached all these people and is impacting their lives. I'm sure that they're enjoying the music, they're headbanging, they're getting energetic with it. I mean, that's what I wanted at the end of the day, is just spread that the energy and that that sound basically. And so it has had a massive impact on me. And I mean, honestly, I kind of saw it coming almost. I knew I was on to something really special when I would show people my like demo tapes and stuff, and they'd be like, wow, this is like something else. So I knew it was coming, but I still was like blown away by just how it felt to kind of release this like successful album. And you know, I feel like success kind of varies. You can define success in a lot of different ways. Maybe for some people that's, I've got a million followers, whatever, they're counting their success with numbers. I think just the fact that I've reached, a good size of people and they've enjoyed my music and they're from all over the place, that's all I can ask for really. So I'm going to keep writing, I'm going to keep doing my thing. And I'm definitely looking forward to the partnership. I think Face Ripper is really cool, and there's tons of passion behind it, obviously behind with you, of course, tons of passion emanating from you. So I really think that we can achieve really really great things. So definitely looking forward to the future there.
Well, if we keep taking shots, we'll hit some targets and some goals.
Yeah,
Gotta keep firing.
that's what you
Well,
got to do.
last minute remaining here. So, Pariah, I thank you again so much for your time and for your music. For those watching this, Ashabah will feature on the March playlist and the annual omnibus, and of course will be littered all around our social media. And I hope that at some point later on in the year there may be some more bits and pieces. But Pariah, it's been excellent for your insight and to talk about your story and the music.
Thank you so much, Ben. Yeah, take care. It's been great being here.
You're welcome. You're welcome.